that men would, try and get into our spaces anyway. They're too emboldened now. They've got used to it. They like being challenging. I think they do it to be anarchic, quite frankly, and to make people uncomfortable.
I'm very far right and proud of it.
We are in a war of propaganda, a war against the establishment, and we have to use every resource we have.
Riots erupted on the streets of Southport last night.
If you have a good reason to say that's a bloke over there, I don't think there's any issue. It's a very odd line in the code about not sometimes not needing to ask, but I think that's probably because most of the time we don't need to ask. We just know who's male and who's female.
A masked man appears to push at the front door of the mosque. Then, caught on doorbell camera, as he bends down, a second person to the left of picture can be seen. An accelerant is poured on the steps before a flash as fire breaks out. A local taxi driver who was inside manages to flee the building.
You vote for a Reform MP, you will not have a detention facility in your constituency. But if you vote Green, or those that support open borders in the world, that's where the detention centres are going to be.
I am not okay. Every day I wake up in Britain.
Every day I wake up!
Every day is a new humiliation. Every day is a new crackdown. Every day it is made harder and harder to just live with dignity in this country. Every day I look at the news, I see a new story insisting that I and everyone like me is an enemy of humankind, an existential threat to everything good and pure, out to drink the blood of children to sustain my sinful life. And I am not alone. This week, the trans community received a horrifying blow from Britain's so-called Equalities Board, based on a judgment from our Supreme Court, paid for with Harry Potter profits, that defined trans people as legally not our gender, but the one that we were assigned at birth. Now we are told we are barred from any public space with a gendered element, whether a bathroom, changing room, medical procedures we might need, hospital wards, and forget sports, we're not allowed in any of them. And how are we going to enforce this? Some sort of bathroom cop task force? Well, no, because that would be impractical. Every business will now be liable for discrimination lawsuits for letting a trans person into the bathroom, incentivizing them to find an excuse to not let us in at the door. You can't check what junk people have for obvious reasons, but if someone looks enough like a tranny, you might have reasonable grounds to exclude them. But if they're not trans, you might get sued for trying to exclude them. This is a legal minefield waiting to happen for anyone who runs a public or frankly private space. But for trans people ourselves, this is a nightmare. Stay at home, the state says. Do not dare to show your face in public. Other people's discomfort, in law, now trumps your right to exist in public. Britain is not somewhere trans people should feel welcome. Britain is not for everyone. The people who get protection in the UK are not trans people, not queer people in general, not disabled people, not Muslims, not immigrants, not black and brown people. You know, those of us who are on the receiving end of the discrimination, violence and abuse. No, the law is being moulded by those who hate to protect those who hate. And it's only just getting started. This government is supposedly centre-left. It's not. But that's how the Labour Party is perceived by people who don't know anything about politics, no matter its increasingly far-right actions. The next government will likely be explicitly far-right. A party whose candidates in their local elections just gone by were a who's who of the most horrific viewpoints imaginable, from blatant racism to violent language towards women to denial of the thing that happened at the end of World War II that I try not to say on YouTube too much because I need to get paid. And the common thread among these people, for the most part, is their vicious hatred for immigrants and for Muslims. Last week there was a massive hate rally in London, where thousands gathered to scream and cry about how much they hate Muslims and immigrants. claiming the country will not be fixed until all Muslims, all immigrants, and all refugees are expelled from the country. Where Stephen Yaxley Lennon, aka Tommy Robinson, a racist and felon who just got back from chilling in Israel to avoid the British legal system, funded by far-right ghouls in the United States and in Israel, called for remigration, a euphemism for mass deportation popularised in Germany because the alternative matched what Hitler called for against the Jews. Today, Germany and Britain both do not seem to have any problem with the same extremists calling for the same exact thing to be done to Muslims. This protest was permitted, widely attended, praised by some in media. Meanwhile, pro-Palestine protests are cracked down on, people arrested en masse and sent to sham trials to go to jail for a decade. The United Kingdom is institutionally Islamophobic, and naked hatred of Muslims is allowed to continue on and on without comment. When Muslims are shot in the street, they are ignored. When mosques are burned, you will not see it on the news, never mind see politicians condemning it. This is a deeply sick society. We are allowing open hatred to run rampant across our media, in our streets, in our governments, and the people in charge, instead of challenging it, are embracing it, making it their own, ratcheting up the tension, insistent that to get more votes, they need to get more cruel, more violent, even as they lose votes every day to their left for this exact behaviour. This under a so-called centre-left Labour government, one that every trans person and every leftist told you would be in practice further to the right than even most Tory governments. And here we are. Another week, another 2 minutes hate. And that's before we get to the legal crackdowns. Britain is sick, but there is a cure. Trans people are not alone. Muslims are not alone. Palestinians are not alone. Immigrants are not alone. Disabled people are not alone. We need to make that abundantly clear. We will stand together, united, no matter what horrors are thrown at us. We can, and we will, win. And with that hit of hopium, let's just briefly explain what the hell happened last week.
That Supreme Court judgment from over a year ago, which finally ruled, I mean, the fact that we need this court to even rule this in the first place is disgusting if you ask me, but we are where we are. Anyway, they've now ruled that for the purposes of the Equality Act 2010, where somewhere is defined by single sex, that means biological sex. You'd think that'd be the end of it. Oh no.
Is the government right to ban trans women from female toilets? New guidance is expected to be published today, is set to say that trans women should be excluded from female toilets, changing rooms and some single-sex spaces. It follows last year's Supreme Court ruling that the term woman and sex in the Equality Act refers to biological sex rather than gender.
I'm in danger!
Last week, the Labour government, long since having given up any pretense of being other than Tories and red ties, cemented their legacy as the most anti-LGBT government since Margaret Thatcher. It wasn't enough for them to ban puberty blockers. It wasn't enough to restrict HRT. It wasn't enough to implement their own version of Section 28 for trans kids, making it impossible to teach or even talk about trans people in educational environments. It wasn't enough to enforce snitching on trans kids to their parents, no matter the danger, and despite this being explicitly against the very concept of safeguarding. It wasn't enough to ban all trans people from playing in sports. It wasn't enough to cater to all those who hate us at every opportunity, marching at Pride to get elected, and then dedicating every waking moment to stripping us of our rights and any sense of joy we might be able to wring out of life on this hateful little island. It wasn't enough that every day newspapers publish multiple articles painting us as inherently evil predators. It wasn't enough that every week another frivolous lawsuit, funded through Harry Potter royalties, bullies trans people out of their places of work, out of essential services, out of shops and public life, because a loud minority cannot stand to see us living and walking around in public. It wasn't enough to have the threat of a trans bathroom ban hanging over us for a year, with draft guidance promising to ban us from sports, toilets, changing rooms, social clubs, hospital wards, essential health services such as mammograms, essentially deciding that it is more important that bigots not feel uncomfortable than we not get treated for cancer. After delay and delay delay enough to stupidly get some of our hopes up that these awful measures might have been watered down at least a little, the revised guidance from the ironically named Equality and Human Rights Commission of the UK has been released. And it's horrific. Far from fixing anything about the draft guidance to avoid discrimination, the delay in its release seems to have only served to establish loopholes so that every business in the UK doesn't immediately get sued all at once. And yet, the way it is written still assures this, just in fewer ways. Trans people are to be treated like a third sex. Any service for women or men cannot be for us. Any women's service, for example, that allows us in can be seen as harassment against women. And if you're, say, a trans man, you are de facto banned from both women's and men's toilets and facilities. The trans bathroom ban is all but official. After months of hand-waving, we are right back where we were last year. This country wants every trans person back in the closet. Only this time, the door is left slightly open for someone to go stealth and hide themselves forever in shame, since it admits there is no reliable ID to prove someone's sex in the UK, whereas the previous draft guidance told the people to check birth certificates. We are to be tucked away again. Our existence is inconvenient. Businesses will now be incentivized to bar us at the door rather than getting sued for having let a trans person into a gendered bathroom, although of course they wouldn't be able to say that they're barring us. The Labour government, under the Right Honourable Sir Queer Harmer, has made it very clear we are to be ostracised in public spaces under this guidance, despite the wishes of the general public, who are largely against these measures, against the wishes of those who go to the bathroom with us happily, and against their own voter base and membership. All to please a bunch of loud and filthy rich ghouls who these measures will never satisfy. In fact, they're already complaining that this does not go far enough, has too many loopholes, and that we need to repeal the Gender Recognition Act and make transitioning illegal. Because those who claim to be gender critical do not believe that trans people exist. They believe we are dangerous predators, only claiming to transition to attack the vulnerable poor cis people who are too scared to speak out for fear of the violence that we dish out at every opportunity, naturally.
Diverse country that I love.
Oh, fuck off. I'm sick and tired of hearing about diverse. Oh, so sick and tired of hearing about diverse. It's so annoying. Ordinary people up and down this country, let me tell you this. Keir Starmer is at war with you. He's at war with the future of your children. He's at war with your grandchildren's futures. He's at war with the next generation of jobs. He's at war with everybody who's afraid. He's at war with everybody who opposes a super mosque, who doesn't want to see the fucking burqa worn in our streets. He's at war with every single working person who has to pay PAYE. He's at war with every single small business that is trying to make their local area a better place. He's at war with you.
For example, the Telegraph reported this horrific and cruel bathroom ban as ban on challenging men in women's spaces. New government guidance has said that transgender people should not be asked what sex they are before they use laboratories or changing rooms. I wonder why we can't enforce a system of gender police in front of every toilet in every public space in the entire country. I wonder why asking every person entering a bathroom to show a security guard their genitals might be problematic. I wonder why showing your papers to pee might be read as a bit authoritarian. I wonder why we can't simply run a karyotype test on every single person waiting to pee. I mean, what? They can't hold their pee for a week? Don't they care about protecting women and girls? In fact, we are, according to the updated guidance, harassers by default. We cannot exist without harassing. Our existence in a gendered space is, by its nature, harassment. Now, you might be thinking, how does this affect mothers bringing their boys into the bathrooms to pee like they do all the time? Well, the EHRC, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that before they hit puberty, boys are fine. But once they near their teenage age, they become mega ultra predators, out to devour every woman from the inside out, and naturally, they see trans women as exactly the same, because they cannot conceive of us as anything but men in dresses sneakily trying to get in to perform crimes, despite all evidence to the contrary. And if you thought that was a weird way to report on a huge clampdown on trans people's civil liberties, Look at how the transphobes on the ground are talking about this. We won nothing yesterday. You can't keep men out of women's spaces because the 2 laws upholding gender reassignment don't allow you to. You can't ask them their sex. You've got to expect that a sign will keep them out. It will not. These are dangerous, entitled and sneaky men, or they wouldn't be lying about their sex in the first place. There is only one way to get them out. Escort them out ourselves, then repeal the Gender Recognition Act. Nothing except making it outright illegal to be transgender will please these people. They want to outlaw transitioning and force all trans people to detransition. They want to live in a world where we don't exist at all. Hey, there's a word for that. I wonder if there's a reason the Lemkin Institute, for that big crime that starts with a G, prevention, has issued a red flag alert for the UK due to its anti-trans laws and court decisions. It's probably nothing. Best not to worry about it. It's not like this isn't a global effort to get rid of us that's gone completely global, funded by an increasingly organised fascist international, right?
We could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
That's tech billionaire and Republican megadonor Peter Thiel speaking at a Libertopia, a libertarian conference in 2010. He's basically saying that his political ideology is so unappealing that it'll never win elections. And that's one thing he's right about, because he's railed against women having the right to vote, complained so much about diversity, and written some really disgusting stuff about sexual assault and consent. But he knows that he can use technology as a unilateral alternative to politics, and that should really freak you out. Thiel is one of the co-founders and biggest investors in Palantir, a CIA-funded technology company that has contracts across the government for their data software.
Mostly terrorists, that's true.
It's being called Hondurasgate, an alleged right-wing plot to overthrow leftist leaders in Latin America. The idea? To set up a platform to create and spread fake news against certain administrations, in some cases using state funds. Leaked audio recordings point to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, Argentina's populist leader Javier Milei, and U.S. President Donald Trump as the main players involved in the plot. And these are their alleged targets: the administrations of Mexican leader Claudia Sheinbaum, the head of Brazil, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, and Gustavo Petro, Colombia's president.
The English Defence League, we could take the view that it was intended to be an offshoot of the JDL. Now, the first time that the English Defence League was registered officially on Companies House was by Israeli soldier Roberta Moore. The company was originally incorporated as the EDL, English Defence League Limited. However, it was later renamed to Jewish Defence League, JDL UK Limited.
If there was a war tomorrow, I would be there on the front line fighting for Israel.
Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, said today he didn't have to declare that £5 million given to him by Thailand-based crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne because it was a private gift to fund his personal security. It was given to him in 2024 before Mr Farage became an MP.
An investigation by Good Law Project has found that Health Secretary Wes Streeting's decision to pause the NHS puberty blocker trial in February 2026 was based on a letter from a senior official, subsequently removed from the trial over concerns of his impartiality, and that the legal team behind the wider challenge to the trial has direct ties to the US Christian right group pivotal in overturning Roe v. Wade. Detransitioner Keira Bell's legal challenge against the puberty blocker trial, filed shortly before Streeting paused it in February, is funded by Citizen Go, a global anti-abortion group backed by Russian oligarchs and linked to the Spanish far-right party Vox. Citizen Go campaigns against abortion and LGBTQ rights across the world, from helping Donald Trump pass legislation it claimed would permanently defund Planned Parenthood, to orchestrating an online campaign against moves by the Kenyan government in support of LGBTQ rights. A US anti-abortion group close to reform has tripled its spending in the UK since 2020, Good Law Project can reveal. ADF International spent more than £1.4 million on its activities in the UK last year, according to annual accounts filed this week. The organisation receives this bulk of funding from Alliance Defending Freedom, a US-based Christian conservative legal group that played a key role in the 2022 US Supreme Court decision that overturned federal protections for abortion rights. As its UK operation has expanded, it's become increasingly active in backing legal cases on behalf of anti-abortion and anti-transgender campaigners, following a strategy long used by its US parent organisation. Of course, this hate is global. Britain has a problem, yes, but the British crackdowns on trans people, on pro-Palestinian protests, its open hatred of immigrants and Muslims going unchallenged and with institutional support is but a canary in the coal mine. Other countries will be pushed in this direction too, and the future here and there could be even darker. Even just now, New Zealand just tried to do the equivalent of the UK Supreme Court decision, but in law, defining woman as an adult human biological female in law, which by itself means nothing, but how they interpret it, as with the UK decision, will be another thing entirely. India just rolled back its trans protections in a sweeping and cruel change with no consultation and no debate, leaving millions of trans people lost and terrified, open to discrimination under the fascist government of Narendra Modi. Speaking of fascist governments, the United States just passed a Don't Say Trans bill, requiring trans kids are ratted out to possibly abusive parents, just like we have in the UK, with multiple Democrats crossing the floor to get it passed. Wow, I love the lesser evil. And of course, bathroom bans in multiple US states, bans on transition, rollbacks on ID changes, and more are making life more and more difficult for trans people in the States. And that's before we even mention the consistent pattern of horrific crimes committed against trans people of colour, particularly black trans women, in the States, in the UK, in Brazil, all over the world. The people receiving the brunt of this hate and the resulting violence are not as scary as this is to all of us, white trans people. Black and brown trans people are going to feel this more acutely than anyone. They are in the most danger right now. Keep your friends close. Make sure they are safe. Protect them, because the state has refused to do so. Until the narrative from the top changes, the danger continues. Immigration fears have been on the lips of every politician that's not an explicit socialist, and some of them too, for as long as I can remember. Right now, the surge in reform and far-right parties across the globe is connected to wall-to-wall media blitzes scaremongering about immigration. And yet, it was just reported that in the UK, immigration is way down by hundreds of thousands of people. And far from solving all of our problems, everything has gotten worse. In fact, the drop in immigration has put our health and university sectors into crisis. Universities have had their income just swept away for the sake of pandering to people who have no idea about immigration figures, just vibes. No idea what immigrants do for this country, just what they've been told on TV. And who wouldn't notice any change if everyone was suddenly gone. They just don't like having to look at brown people when they're walking down the street. Why should we be catering to them? Medical staff, particularly nurses, are incredibly short, and our NHS is already deprived of funding to the point of near collapse as it is. Hundreds of thousands of people is a big difference, and it's crippling the country. But the people who insist immigration is a problem think that we have more immigrants than ever. That we can't handle all of these people because they're completely disconnected from the reality of what's actually happening. They're fed a scaremongering narrative from TV, from newspapers, and especially from social media, insisting that all of their problems are due to immigration. But if every immigrant in this country disappeared tomorrow, they would still be struggling. They would still not be able to pay their bills. There would still be massive queues to get anything done. In fact, everything would be worse, because there would be so much fewer nurses, people paying taxes, making your food, and we would be a much worse country for it too, even outside of those factors. These people who are persuaded by racist tirades from politicians and the media take for granted the things that immigrants to this country have contributed to making life on this grim fucking island bearable. They don't avoid Indian and Chinese food. They don't think about the fact that half their ancestry is Huguenot or Irish or both. They don't boycott music made by British people who immigrated here. When they hear Queen on the radio, they don't storm out in a huff. Deep down, they know that these anti-immigrant demands are cruel, that they are motivated by racism. And if the media and our politicians would for one fucking second be honest about immigration, that we need it as a country, that our state would not for a moment function without immigrants, that they are a net good for our country, that they make our culture richer, that they should be welcomed, that they help us innovate and open our eyes to new possibilities and are just people. People who could be your friends and neighbours, even family, if you weren't so busy listening to the lies of ghouls like Nigel Farage or Shabana Mahmood or every prick on GB News, Sky News, half of BBC News, every fucking newspaper, Tommy Robinson, chinless fucking monsters on social media who dream of a Britain that is cruel, lifeless and sterile. Just a crowd of people who all look the same, who all dress the same, who all think the same, not daring to step out of line, and shunning anyone who happens to bring any excitement, any spark, anything even remotely resembling good for being different. They will not win, but they are putting up a fight, and we need to be ready to stand up for our friends and neighbours, to stand together, to resist if they get their way, and make moves against those they hate. Do not despair yet. There is still time. It's not over yet. If you accept that it is over, they have already won. The EHRC guidance can still be voted against. It probably won't be, but it can. It is, however, a legal minefield. It will almost certainly be torn apart in the courts. It can also be made completely useless by Labour, using a gigantic honking majority to change the law to make protections for trans people more explicit, with no room for this vile bad faith interpretation of the law, which actually contradicts another law, but they won't do it. However, the unions, by and large, have come out against this guidance. Maybe this time they will use their massive leverage they have against the Labour Party to push for it to be scrapped. Based on their previous record, I find this unlikely, but they do have the power. The Good Law Project is committed to taking the legal route to fighting this guidance. We can do other things on the ground. We can show up. We can make it clear we will not comply. We can make it impossible to enforce. We can force them to change it. It will be difficult, but we cannot go quietly into that closet. They have not won. Don't let them convince you that they have you beat. You can still move. You can still fight. Do not let the possibility of defeat linger for even a second in your head, because you are not alone. You are not okay. I am not okay. We are not okay. But you are not fighting alone. We will not allow you to accept defeat. We have to win. Our future depends on it. There are many of us, and there are few of them. If you accept that the fight is over, they have already won. But as long as you have me, you have us, you have thousands of us, all ready to stand for each other, they cannot win. Victory is assured. As awful as things seem now, if we can all take this punch, and then, with purpose, get back up, we have a world to win, and nothing left to lose. Hey, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. A short one, I hope, if I've done this right. Well, I needed to talk about the EHRC thing. A little bit delayed because of that, because I had to throw that together, but it's okay. I needed to talk about it, so that's how it's going to be. If you like this video, I guess liked is a strong word. Hope you liked my presentation. I don't know. I was pretty bit quiet as well. I recorded this quite late at night, and also it's very hot here, so my brain is quite frazzled. But if you do like it, then give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and give it a hype. Please hype it. I am also asking for money if you have some for me. Week's have been shit given this. It would make me happy to get tips. You don't have to, obviously, especially if you don't have money. That I've never asked you to do that, but if there's a time to do it, this might be one of those times. So why not give me a one-time donation on Coffee or PayPal, links below as always, or sign up to my Patreon or YouTube memberships, where you can get early videos when they are early, uncensored videos when they are censored, access to members only Discord, friend code, exclusive content such as long-form interviews with people I have on the thing, yeah, all that stuff, and more, probably. And also, if you sign up, you'll get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Dan-shaped blob, Caddick, Achu, Graffitia, Ekachu, Jonah Fart 2, Cat read this fart noise out. Uncast Shadow of a Southern Myth, Rain, Michael McGrorty, Will, Alexander Barnes, Reese Nett, Ken Sorden, Andrew Steele, Georgie, Carlito Del Mozzotti, Anna Nicholson, Dungeon Slime, Naomi Gorman, Melody, Ben Norman, Brooke Linnett, Heidi Law, Transform and Function, Cara Patching, Mattia 98, Lilith Dawn, Spin Noir, Victor Lufgren, Gil the Gilded Dragon, A Slice of Cake, Rue, Buried Elk, Ewan Bennett, Maltian, Gina Service, You're Made Off Stupid, Tomo, Melissa Jackson, Brenna Proves Your Stuff, Minstrel, of course, Jeffreyon, Tom the Not Quite So Brave for Sir Lancelot, LFR, Trikoi, Ariella, Proclar, Robin Thomas, Emily Eisenberg, Garlic Scape, Kira B, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Gianna J, Mighty Than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, End of 191, Cav, Quesadilla de Tortilla Azul, Leron, Adam Lees, Daniel Nevels, Nonova, Paul, MB, Wandering Wonder, Lex Phoenix, Enter Cruisits, Mira D, Jade Senior, Boa Ia, James W, Thorngill, Deborah Laboon, Zillas Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia Sett, J, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helen Real, Sierra Whiskey, Ali Catgill, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Raven Tempest, Sheila Baden, Robin Podolsky, Night Like Plushy Jesus, Casual Observer, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Summer Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Deanna McMillan, Carolyn Regalado, and Alexandra Lilly. Howard Lott, Robert McCallan, Sabrina Wade, Montana Schmidbauer, Zach Beavan, Meow Meowski, Kamui, Eva Kebab, Marty Hunt, Jane Luciferian, Melissa Allen, Ataraxis Bills Things, and Sarah Francesca Smith. Thank you so much for helping. See you soon. Stay strong. We're in this together.